It's the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole Studio in downtown bright sunny Bobcaygeon. And I'm one of your hosts, Terry. And unfortunately, the seat in the corner is still unoccupied by my good friend, Jim. How's that for an introduction? It's been 2 weeks since Jim and I have met in the Hobbit Hole Studio, since we've enjoyed sharing a mug of coffee together, since we've enjoyed commiserating, mulling over events, world events, news, local events, the latest, the greatest. Have you heard? Have you heard? That's sort of our subtitle for our website, The Jim and Terry Show. One of the things that has taken us away for a few weeks of getting together has been a family passing. Is that the right word to say? A death in the family, a departure, a passage from this side of the veil to the other side, whatever that may be, whatever your belief system is. And as Jim's brother Bob reminded me, may he rest in peace. Rest in peace, whatever the concept is that we tell ourselves to make the frailty and finality of this existence work for us, so that we're not constantly in dread of that day when it will befall us. If you're a believer, you sort of look at heaven and life after death, the resurrection, and those are your markers, and there's no need to be afraid of the passage. Even for myself, who's more of an agnostic / atheist, skeptical humanist, that kind of person, the thought of passing is simply one of regret. Regret that I would not have accomplished more in my life. Regret that I did not, study harder, take more risks in life, take that job that I thought I might do well at, too afraid of change to take a chance on it. Those are the kinds of regrets. And that may lead one to take a look at one's life and make decisions, change the course, change it up before too much water goes under the bridge of life. For myself, the passage was of a brother who's just 4 years older than myself. So that frames it all pretty close for me. And the suddenness of his passing was something that made me aware that we are not in a lineup based on age. There's no queue, and we don't have, take a number when you're born, and that number is yours for the rest of your life, and your birth order determines your death order. It's none of that. There's a random quality to this existence. Disease ravages us all. Genetics can plague us, and that's the case of the passing of my brother, a genetic condition that we all, mostly males, are prone to, vulnerable to, and it has led all of us. One brother survived this event. My brother, who we gathered to celebrate his passing, did not survive. It took him quickly, and it's one of those things in life that is, sometimes you can see it coming. Sometimes you get the diagnostic imaging and you say, whoa, what's that? Okay, we better look after that. Okay, it's whatever the problem is, it's getting bigger. Okay, we better schedule surgery. There's all of that kind of stuff that's available if you know it's coming. And if you don't choose to bury your head in the sand and say, it's not going to happen to me. Well, yeah, the inevitability does happen to all of us at some point. Time, age, genetics, disease, randomness, chaos, it all comes to bear on our life. The sadness of the passing is mitigated somewhat by the celebration of the life, and that's what we call it, a celebration of life. So when we gathered as a family from not quite the four corners of the earth, why do I keep using that flat earth analogy? Maybe it's biblical. Was the Bible flat earth? Don't get me started. Let's talk about gathering family from as far away as France, from Western Canada, to my own journey, 4 hours in a car, to meet with other siblings that we don't often stay in touch with. Our family used to be pretty tight, used to keep in touch, but over time, perhaps marked by the passing of my father some nearly 25, 30 years ago now, it sort of grew apart. We all had our different stages and families, and life took us and pulled us in different directions, and sometimes we created our own issues, and silence and distance crept into the family mix, so that passings, as much as I am loath to say it, passings become an occasion to gather again, to see if there's still some commonality that is marked by a surname that we share, by parents that we share, by a history that we share. And it's good to gather, to reminisce, to go over the good times, the things that we remember. And it's one of those tricks of memory, a blessing or a trick, I'm not sure which, that we tend to focus on the good, and we are able to rise above or reframe or in some way put on a shelf in our mind the not so pleasant stuff that we also shared. You know, the fights, the squabbles, they seem to drift into a fog of memory that we're not able to recall so clearly, unless it was perhaps a very traumatic event, in which case trauma is definitely ensconced somewhere with a bright light that shines and reminds you, often unbidden, with sounds or phrases, words, textures, smells, things that just call these traumas back to life. I don't know where I'm going for, just mulling over all those variations of, you gather as a family, you think you're going to sit and shoot the breeze, but it can be awkward. And family gatherings to celebrate a life is, maybe a struggle for some. The service was interesting because they were not particularly a religious family, but faith had a place, or at least a reference point for them. I had another sibling, or two of them actually, gather at our old stomping grounds, a church in the East End of Toronto, which, oddly enough, I had just been at a month prior to celebrate the passing of a friend of mine's mother. And so, isn't it funny that life brings us back to our old roots, a church in the East End of Toronto? And the photograph of siblings in front of the church, though none of them have, as far as I know, darkened the steps of a church since those childhood years, that still has a place. It is still a pin on the map of life, someplace where you were, and you tie a string to it, and you reach out to wherever you are going, and you can see the connections to where you are. A time of passing is a time when we connect the pins in our life to the origin stories, where we all used to go, a pew full of my family. There were 7 of us who were brothers and 2 sisters. So the pew at one time would have been overflowing with a mother and father and 9 kids. Eventually, of course, everyone goes their own way and the pew becomes less occupied, more space, but always there was the sound of my father's joyful noise. He loved his hymns, couldn't hold a tune or find a note. If you played middle C for an hour, he would still not be able to match the pitch. Tone deaf, yeah, to some things, which is convenient at some points, but tone deaf when you're trying to sing a hymn, it was more like the bellowing, the cacophony, the noise that you try to hold your own tune while someone's trying to distract you. But that pew was our reference point for family growing up, for Christmases, for Easters, for all the pageants in the church. It was a place that we grew up. And I mulled over in a previous podcast the comfortable pew. Ours were not comfortable. They were rock solid wood, and we were in the area of the church known as the chancel, which is up near the front, near a baptismal font. So that tells you that it's not an evangelical church. It was an Anglican church. And that pageantry, pomp and circumstance were part of what I guess my family was introduced to. So in the memorial service for my brother were some hymns, songs that were meaningful, as well as some pop culture songs. Yeah, Hallelujah, sung by Katie Lang. Yeah, that's a classic, and apparently my brother loved that, and I did not know that. So you learn a little bit more about people who you grew distant from over the years. It doesn't mean that we couldn't pick up the phone, it's just that we often didn't pick up the phone. And emails were often brief and to the point with no disclosure, so you learn maybe not to be as inquisitive, not to try to keep things going. You just let it slide. Isn't that a BTO song? Somebody who's listening to this can correct me. BTO, let it slide, let it ride. Let it ride, maybe, not let it slide. Anyway, it was a time of family gathering. And that was taking the wind out of my sails a bit, more for a sense of my own frailty, my own journey in life, not too many years distance between my brother who just passed suddenly, and wondering about my own life and what will be read at my funeral. What will be the gathering at my own passing? Have you ever thought about that? I wrote my funeral service once upon a time. In the days when I thought I would be in a casket, but I've changed my mind more an urn, and let's not occupy the cemeteries of the earth, but let's ashes to ashes, easier to manage. You're here but for a breath. Ashes are a great symbol. So yeah, cremation rather than burying. That's sort of where I'm looking at. A reminder that we are temporal. We are frail and fragile people. And as much as we struggle to remember, maybe it's good that we let some things go. Maybe we let go to attachment, let go of things that keep us rooted and stuck. Be adventurous in life, maybe a little more. Take a little more time to converse. Memories. Here's to my brother, whose passage was a cause of a family gathering, and the hope that it'll be a few years before another one of this nature takes place. The Jim and Terry Show. Passages. Make yours joyful. Make yours meaningful. And may it be a long while ahead for each of us. The Jim and Terry Show signing off. Bye-bye for now.